we have any green cards, public comments? No? 8.1, we have district updates, and first the facilities update.
Well, yes, Mr. Fruman, today's district facilities update is going to be rather short. Following our last Saturday's board work session, the board gave me a couple of things that to begin exploring, in which we have done it. So I've also beginning to put together a facilities committee, and we'll be meeting later this week.
Excellent.
So,
thank you. Ms. Adams, curriculum update.
I don't know about you guys, but when I'm shopping in Kroger or standing on the basketball court or football field, I'm being asked about the standards and what does this all mean for Forest Hill. So I thought I would take the opportunity tonight to give you a big picture view of what curriculum alignment and design in Forest Hills looks like, so that we can all be a little more informed and understand the hard work that the teachers are doing behind the scenes to really implement new standards all across the curriculum. So the first thing is that you want curriculum to answer 4 main questions for you. You want it to answer, what do you want kids to know and be able to do? With that, you want to say, what does that look like? And so what would be the evidence of that learning? So the assessment. The third question is, if students aren't learning, what should we do? What should be our response? And the fourth question being, if students are already showing mastery or understanding of the curriculum, how do we extend and enrich their learning? So those are our 4 guiding questions that we use through the curriculum design process. And what the curriculum team is working with the teachers to do is to really take the new standards and be critical consumers of what we're seeing and analyze how we want to implement this in Forest Hills. So the standards that are given to us from the state are really what we have to teach. And so we are given then the opportunity to design and to say how. So if you'll go all the way down to the bottom, Susan, I'm going to work my way up. So this just gives you a graphic example of how this process works. And as I said, today is just kind of a big picture overview, and over the next several weeks or months when we come together, we'll go into more specific examples. So currently, Forest Hills is in the course of study process with English Language Arts. Next year, it'll be math. And so why do we do this? We want to ensure that we have success for all students and that we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum, meaning sometimes there can be so much in standards and so much learning that you want to get across, you have to be sure that there's enough time and enough resources and opportunity to do that. And so that's our ultimate reason why we enter into this process. So it begins with us taking the new learning standards from Ohio and deconstructing them. And what you want to do in the deconstruction process is really make sure that everybody on the team, on the curriculum team, really understands the standards in the same way. We unpack them and then put them into student-friendly language. So it's not just this mystery target that the teacher owns. You want it to be something that the students and the teacher kind of share and understand together. You take those standards and then group them and kind of paste them into some kind of order that makes sense for the content area. And that is really something that's done as a collaborative process across the district K-12. Then the work kind of moves back into the buildings a little bit. So if you want to scroll down, this process here with the arrows pretty much represents this ongoing work that happens with teams of teachers and individual teachers in their classroom as they develop engaging units of study that really represent the 21st century learning skills that we want our students to have, plus all the standards that Ohio expects. And you design units of study that are clearly defined, and the success criteria for what it looks like to be successful in that learning is consistent across the district. And so we want to ensure that what's going on in a second grade classroom at one elementary is also the same level of learning that's happening in another elementary. And so part of this ongoing process is about developing common pre-assessments and post-assessments with opportunities to work as teams collaboratively to design units. And really what's so different about, I think, teaching and learning today as opposed to years ago is the fact that it is such a collaborative process. It's not just one teacher on an island working in their room. They're having to bring many stakeholders into the process. Maybe it's a gifted specialist, maybe an intervention specialist, maybe somebody from the technology team to really incorporate those skills. And so which makes it a much more complex process. Okay, you can scroll on down, and that again is an ongoing process where you're always tweaking and it's always evolving, and that's how we deliver our and develop our curriculum. How well we do in our curriculum is really defined for us in a lot of ways from external forces, and so the next feature there of the graphic is to show that you want to align all of your work with your standards to the outcomes that were expected. And so we have a combination of district level assessments that we give students. The state assessments, these are new. We're going to continue to talk about them over the course of the next couple months. There's two main components that make these assessments different than the past. One is performance-based, and that is done after 75% of the curriculum has been completed. That performance is more, it's not hands-on, but it's more experiential, or it gives students opportunities to explain what they know in real-world problems. And they're a little more difficult to administer and to score, and so that's why they happen sooner in the year. And then the end-of-course exams or end-of-year assessments, that happens after 90% of the curriculum has been taught, and that is more traditional in what we are used to seeing in the OAA. I guess the biggest difference for us is that this is going to be an online assessment, and so there's lots of work to help prepare for that. And then finally, we want to be ultimately aligned to the college and career readiness assessments. And so for high school and really from middle school up, that's more obvious. The ACT package of course, or assessments, or SAT. But the uniqueness about the Ohio standards right now is that they really are K-12, meaning from kindergarten on, you are developing skills and indicators that tell you you're on track for college and career skills that you need to have. And that gives us our, how well we're doing, and we use those results to kind of loop back down and guide the process. So again, what I'm most impressed with really is the dedication behind the teachers' work, because they are having to really implement new standards in science, social studies, language arts, and math kind of simultaneously. That's kind of what makes this process different and more complex. They're having to prepare for assessments that we've never seen before. We're getting little glimpses, but we haven't really been able to actually see or experience them. And they're having to do this all in a accelerated timeline. So I'm just very impressed and proud of the work that everyone's doing, and just want you to recognize the complexity of this process compared to the past, which in the past, this process looked more like you take the standards, you decide what's happening at each grade level, and then you match resources. You buy resources that are going to help carry this out. And as you can see, this is a much more involved process that involves a lot of stakeholders. So, as I said, I'll be back over the course of the next couple months to go more deeply into some examples, but do you have any questions or anything about what I've presented so far?
The third box down, I understand that, state tests, got it.
Yes.
What are we using in the fourth box down?
The district?
Yeah.
At this time, it's K-8. The one assessment that we have is the MAP test, NWEA MAP, and that's given 3 times a year as a benchmark. In the past, we've used assessments like Ames Web and Study Island. This is the first year for MAP. And the MAP assessment is giving us growth of our students over time, and that's the first time, because most of these things and what we're mostly used to is achievement level data.
Single snapshot. This is.
It's 3 times, so
Okay.
yeah, over the course of the year.
So it's a benchmark. And these are things that you have chosen to use. It's not required by the state, correct?
Well, yes and no. There are pieces of it that, in using that assessment, fulfills state requirements.
Okay.
So it's kind of yes and,
But you're
yes.
choosing the one to use to fulfill their requirement.
There is a list on the OD website that we can choose from. And so MAP was as we studied this last year as part of the evaluation system, that process, MAP was chosen. And we're continuing to implement it. We've done 2 assessments, one in the fall and now one in the winter. Continue to evaluate its use and what's going to be best for our students.
Second question is college and career assessments. I understand how the SAT and the ACT are assessing college readiness, but how is that, and this is not really a question for you, but I mean, it's a question, how does the state consider that career readiness?
Because of the skills that are associated with them, and truthfully, I think what we're going to see evolve are different kinds of assessments that get mapped out over time, that it's not going to be just the ACT, just the SAT. You're going to see different paths, different ways of showing your abilities to kind of show that you've arrived, that you've learned. And
we've heard the drumbeat over the last 5 years of college and career readiness, but okay. Thank you.
Well, I do think we just, as a district, we have to really expand our thoughts on that, that we really are preparing students now and for their future, and it doesn't mean one path. There are multiple paths, and we have to open our minds to what all those can look like.
When are our teachers doing all this work in addition to the...
That's a great question. I know, it's very difficult to be teaching your students and be working through this process. And so depending on if you're in the course of study year, your work kind of ramps up. So for instance, we have a K-12 course of study team that meets monthly for an entire day to work through this process. And then often on our professional development days, you're kind of going back to the larger team, sharing your progress, getting feedback, and then you come back to the table and tweak. So that's how we try to work it. In terms of the timeline, it's not perfect. It's not like we can do that every month. We use a lot of our online electronic communication to try to keep everybody in the loop and get feedback, but it's very challenging. So that's what we're doing specifically for ELA, and because all of our efforts are really in that, we can do a smaller amount of work on math, so it's a little bit spottier. Our attention will fully turn to math next year. And as you'll see in what I'm sharing later with the new courses, math has had to work in the background developing new courses because of the path that we chose with math as we implement the new standards. So it's a lot going on at one time, and truly we're still not getting to everything that we probably want to, but.
Other than time, do you have the sufficient resources you need to be working your way through this?
That's a great question. I think we have maximized every personnel resource that we have in the district right now to get to where we are. And all the time, we're feeling like it's not enough. And so it's always feeling like things are undone. And as a curriculum director, I really want to support everybody and have all this ready to deliver like tomorrow. And so I guess the resource I need is kind of understanding of the process from the board, from the community, and to know that we have teachers that are working really hard, that they're not robots, that they want to critically think about what they're doing and implement it well. They don't want to do anything halfway. And so having the understanding is really important to us. And as I need resources along the way, we really will be bringing them forward. To your attention, to Dr. Jackson, so that we can make sure that we are keeping a high bar in Forest Hills. So we'll let you know when we need it, we will.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Board discussion. I think the first item I'd like to address, and if I can do this justice to Rick Tepfer, once again, we are so fortunate that our treasurer, Rick Tepfer, has won the Auditor of State Award, and I know that credit goes not just to Rick, but to his entire team. So the community understands, not just everybody gets a clean audit report. It comes to Rick very often, but it doesn't come to every district very often. The Auditor of State, Dave Yost's office, has returned a clean audit report once again. Forest Hills' excellent record keeping has earned the District Auditor of State Award. Once again, how many times is that, Rick?
Couple.
A couple. It's more than a couple, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Auditor of State Award is presented to local governments and school districts upon the completion of a financial audit. Entities that have received the award must meet the following criteria of a clean, and that's in quotes, audit report. They must be a generally accepted accounting principles entity with a certified annual financial report that timely files their financial reports with the Auditor of State. The audit report does not contain any findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or single audit findings or questioned costs. The entity's management letter contains no comments related to ethical referrals, questioned costs not less than $10,000, lack of timely report submission, reconciliation, failure to obtain a timely single audit, findings for recovery less than $100, public meetings or public records. Probably nobody here knows this, but before my years as an attorney, I was an auditor. First, an internal auditor for a company with 30 subsidiaries, and then I was an external auditor auditing large public companies. I can tell you as an auditor, you can always find something anywhere but in Forest Hills. Congratulations, Rick.
Open it up. There we go.
One more. I'm going to give a social.
Other items of board's discussion.
I do have just a, not discussion, but maybe just a couple quick updates, and
Sure.
again, very small after that, for sure. But just wanted to say that the board, especially Randy and Julie, we just recently received the Neola spring packet, so you'll be receiving your packets to take a look at in that regard for our policies. It just seems like we just finished that minute. And then also, I just wanted to report that our first online Calamity Day makeup, we began that on February 17th. Students have 2 weeks to complete their work in that regard. We will be evaluating the success of that particular way to make up these particular Calamity Days over this rather harsh winter. That Summit will also be participating on February 28th in a second Calamity Day packet, sort of makeup activities for Summit because of a power failure that they had earlier in the fall. And as I said, after we evaluate these two, then we will look at how we would possibly might make up our second district-wide Calamity Day. This is always this is an option that we could use as well. So I wanted to report that as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it isn't on the agenda for discussion tonight, nor do I think it should be. I would like to remind the public that we are talking about facilities and have already had 2 board work sessions. Last one was last Monday, the
I'm sorry, Monday. I thought it was Saturday.
14th, and then the Saturday before that, I don't remember the date, but the next board or work session for facilities issues is March 24th at 5 p.m. It'll be immediately prior to our regularly scheduled board meeting, and everybody's welcome to attend, and we welcome your input either by email or telephone call before then. Call any of the board members. I know we'd all love to hear from you.
I think, Mr. Fruman, is it 5:30 on that night?
Is it 5:30?
5:30.
5:30, I stand corrected, thank you. Other items of board discussion? Item 10.1, we're going to be taking these by consent. What is it, 10.1 through? 14.3. 14.3. Ms. Ryan?
Student Services has 6 items. 5 are overnight field trips. 1 is our Hamilton County DDS agreement. 10.1 is Anderson High School's Teaching Professions Academy traveling to Findlay, Ohio, March 6th and 7th. 10.2 is Anderson High School's Ohio Junior Classical League traveling to Columbus, Ohio, March 7th through 9th. 10.3, Anderson High School's dance team is traveling to Columbus, Ohio, March 1st and 2nd for their Ohio State dance competition. Turpin High School's orchestra is traveling to Conway, South Carolina, April 10th through the 13th. And item 10.5, got them mixed up a little bit here, but it is, our 10.5 is our agreement with Hamilton County DDS Services and Forest Hills. And the enclosed attachments include our agreement as well as resolution and our aid service agreement. 10.6, Anderson High School's marketing or DECA club is traveling to Columbus, Ohio, March 14th through 15th. 5 of the overnight field trips as I stated, are noted in 10.1 to 10.4 and 10.6. The superintendent is recommending you approve these 5 field trips in these items and the Hamilton County DDS agreement between Forest Hills as shown in the attachments in items 10.5.
Thank you.
Questions about those items?
The Hamilton County DDS agreement, that looked like it was a flat rate. Is that the way that normally operates, or tell me more about?
Yes, the $30,000 is a flat tuition rate for those districts that provide their own transportation, which we would do for our students. So that is a flat rate. The 25 is for students who would be attending their satellite programs. And at this time, we don't have students in either of the programs that are listed in this agreement. It is in the event of, if we were to consider
Okay.
that. In the past, we have, but right now, we are serving students in district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Ms. Adams, we'll hear from you, right? Yes, thank you. Summer school dates and fees for 2014.
Yes, and the first item, we're asking that you recommend and approve the dates and fees for elementary, middle, and high school classes offered during summer school for 2014. Just a few things to point out about it. The fees are the same as they've been in the past. There are some additions that we're adding to the high school opportunities, and that is some more opportunities for original credit, specifically with personal finance and American government courses. Moving on, the next part here are just all the courses that have been developed. And Mr. Fruman, you had asked, do we have enough time to do all this? I have to say, I put a lot of faith and a lot of stock into what the teachers bring forward. And for math in particular, as I said, our course of study year will be next year, but the teachers have had to be working the last 2 years to put together new courses based on our district decision to move to an integrated math path through the implementation of the new standards. And so what you'll see as part of 11.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6, those are all math courses that have been developed to support the new standards. And you see a combination of courses that are provided for students who might need, they can handle the same standards, but they might need a little more time to complete the course. And so that would be the math. Do you have any questions about the math before I go on to the next ones? Okay. The next items, 11.7, 8, 9, and 10, all reflect courses that the PE and health teachers have come together to create. They've been working very hard, very creative in their efforts to expand opportunities for physical education in Forest Hills. And so we're very excited about these opportunities and know that they're going to be courses that kids are going to be attracted to, and it's going to help support lifelong fitness and learning.
Natasha, may I ask you a
Yes.
question about, are you done with that part of it?
Well, that part with the PE, yes.
Yeah. Do you want me to ask my question now, or do you want to keep
No, it's
going?
fine.
Okay. At the time we, as a board, decided to change our PE program, there was a lot of discussion with some of the coaches and the athletic directors and PE teachers. Could you tell us a little bit about the process used to arrive at those programs?
Sure.
Was it at the high school level that?
Well, we pulled all those same stakeholders together. We pulled both Nagel teachers as well as Anderson and Turpin teachers, and we started early in the school year just brainstorming, not fully understanding what all the impact of the waiver was going to do. What are some things that we can do here in Forest Hills to attract the students to these courses, to vary depending on your athletic background or your interests, how can we pull you in? And so we just got into a brainstorming mode and spent lots of time doing that. And then ever since that time, probably about, not quite once a month, but maybe once every other month, the teachers have come back to develop these courses and have shown a lot of interest and excitement about it. And through it, we think we're going to be able to develop some partners with local organizations just to, extend the PE beyond the classroom. It's not just a course, it's a way of life. And so we're excited about that.
I think, if I might add, too, the teachers have done a wonderful job, and really, you can look at these in the description of these courses and see that what they're offering is unique. But at the same time, they brainstormed a lot of this on their own, but they also surveyed our students, both of them.
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that process. You're right.
I forgot about those kids.
We did. Well, we specifically zoomed in on some 8th grade students and 9th grade just to say, what would attract you? So we did use that feedback. I forgot about that. They worked really hard on that. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
I thought the officiating class was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of leading into a partnership that we can possibly work through the Park District to have our students certified and ready to referee at the events that our youth are participating in. So just as one opportunity. Okay, the next course is Engineering Models. That's 11.11. This will be offered next year for dual enrollment credit through the University of Cincinnati. And the final course that we're asking you to consider tonight is Mandarin 1. And this is really, at this point, a formality for us to bring this forward. There are still lots of details that need to be worked out about this course because it is, we've kind of stumbled up on this opportunity through ODE and the College Board to possibly be able to, through a grant process, bring teachers here to offer this foreign language that we've never been able to experience before. So I have to give Brad Chamberlain a lot of credit. He's done a lot of the groundwork to explore this and work with ODE to bring this to us, and we are still kind of waiting. We've got a good indication in an email recently that that things are going to fall into place, but it's not finalized. And Brad will actually have a meeting tomorrow to maybe find out a little bit more. And our hope is really to deepen our efforts with world language and possibly even be able to relieve kind of the load that our foreign language teachers are seeing, because a lot of them are teaching 6 classes and traveling between NAGL and the high schools, and it's a lot. And we know this is very important to the future of our students.
And if approved, this is a grant that'll provide the teacher for 3 years, and then we self-fund the 4th year, is that right?
That's the idea. It can be anywhere, it's not, it's anywhere from 1 to 3. There's abilities throughout the process to kind of evaluate and say, is this working for us? Is it working for our students? So you're not locked in if you're not happy with it, but that would be the idea. And we have to kind of show the sustainability of it.
Right.
And I might add, it's not total funding, but it does help.
The engineering course?
Yes.
That's dual credit?
Yes.
We've heard a lot about the wonders of dual credit courses. Do you have more of those on the horizon coming in future years, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to continue to expand that every opportunity we get. We have dual credit options. In fact, I don't know if you want to speak to it, because I know you just recently came off a meeting with UC talking about the options.
There's a whole menu of options from the University of Cincinnati, and some of those will likely fit pretty well into the courses we already have developed. And then there's a couple where they want to see a syllabus from a particular course and share it with in one of their departments to make sure that course would work as well. So every year we hope to expand, and it's really more about some of the paperwork and logistics of getting our teachers credentialed to deliver dual credit. UC has, they're not stringent requirements, but requirements nonetheless for each discipline and content area. So we do anticipate continuing to offer more of those.
There were some barriers to what you just spoke about, the credentialing, and are those barriers coming down, or is some of that still there? And I think it was financial based, but
It used to be that they required a master's degree in the content area, but they've reduced that requirement for the teachers to 18 credit hours of graduate work in their content area. So without looking through it, without reaching out yet, I just had this meeting last week, without reaching out to Human Resources, my guess is some of our teachers have done that level of coursework already, and we're really talking high school level. So that kind of legwork is yet to be done, but it's also the type of thing that we can work through the spring and then make those known to our students in the fall, maybe after they've already signed up for a course they would have taken anyway. So it's kind of a way to add value to the courses that they might already take.
And we know that's a board priority, to continue to look at the opportunities for students. The one thing that we do really well in Forest Hills, thanks to our staff really, is having that wonderful high school experience. And so we find that sometimes kids are attracted to that. So what we want to continue to do is have a wonderful high school experience for students, but at the same time being able to encourage them to go in these areas. And so that's what we'll continue to work on.
second question I had is mainly on the math courses. We're going to have to, the board is going to vote on those next month. I'm not a curriculum expert. We had a pseudo committee of one who took responsibility for that. Is there any plan for?
Well, I don't think it was a committee of one. I think there were a number of people.
Former.
Were you
one. Now we're-
referring
talking
to
about Tracy,
Tracy?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the
Okay.
board, yes.
Is there any plan for any kind of, I know you must be aligned to this, or you wouldn't be bringing it forward, but is there any other review of the curriculum that we're going to be voting on that we should expect to see? Or is there anything else to the process, or we just will be voting on it next month?
Well, I think what you're referring to is that Natasha has worked at putting together a review committee, which would involve Tracy and some other individuals that will be meeting periodically to look at curriculum. I don't think they've had the opportunity to look at these particular math courses since they've been in the works for quite some time. But if you could.
Yeah, a lot of this is just the timing of getting the course guide up so we can communicate to our students what opportunities are for next year. So is there something specific that you want to be looked at here?
I don't know what I don't know. That's why I was asking. But it sounds like you do have a curriculum committee that is assessing this, and that sounds good.
And Tracy's still around.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Yes, we've met.
Yeah, we've connected with Tracy and others to put together kind of an outside group that will also be helping us with our curriculum. Take
Thank
a
you.
look at it.
Yeah, our first meeting was mostly about English language arts. It wasn't about math. And so this is pretty still hot off the press kind of information because the committees, or the team is still working on it, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Adams? All right, then the Human Resources Report, Ms. Carnahan?
Looking at item 12.1, we do have A and B are retirements of our certified and our classified staff. And when you add those 6 people together, that's 117 years worth of experience that is going to be retiring between now and the end of the school year. So we'll accept these with just concern that we just need to continue to find great people to fill their places. Item C is a resignation. Item D, a change of assignment. Item E just concerns the next number of items, appointments, F, and on page 2, we see certified and classified staff, some additional appointments. On item G, special services appointments for this school year, we see some after-school intervention that's taking place in our elementary buildings, as well as some athletic and some additional arts information. Item H, you will see our coaches and advisors, and this also goes over to page 5. Item I, we have our substitute personnel. Item J would be our memoranda of understanding, and there are actually 2 exhibits. One is a memorandum with the Forest Hills Teachers Association and the board, and the second is an item between the OPSI 273 group and the board also. And again, like I said, there are exhibits. Since the board meeting, the last regular board meeting, January 27th, the staffing level has increased 1.07 to 770.90 FTE. And this was due to some very small increases in bus routes. And then also our Turpin High School, we added another section of our Forest Hills Academy at Turpin, and that accounts for one of those FTE. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions, anyone? Thank you. Business operations, Mr. Johnson.
I've got 6 items here, the first being a sidewalk easement along the property of Mercer Elementary and Turpin High School. It's going to connect the existing sidewalk to a proposed sidewalk that will run down Bartles to a sidewalk that will be going in along Clough Pike. It's going to cover about 13 feet of our property. The treasurer recommends the board approve the granting of the easement as shown in the attachment. Next is bid openings. We had the bid opening for the replacement of the fire alarm system at Air Elementary on February 11th. The treasurer recommends the board awarding the contract to Cincinnati Electrical Solutions as presented. The next one is replacement of the track at Nagel Middle School. Again, bids were opened on February 11th. The bid will also include an alternate that will take the sidewalk and connect it to the sidewalk that runs in front of the building. Right now, student walkers, when they come to Nagel, have to cross the parking lot at 2 different points to be able to access the front of the building, so we're going to put in a new sidewalk there. The treasurer recommends the board approve the contract to West Side Paving and Excavating as presented. The next is the bid opening for the partial window replacement at Turpin High School. Again, bids were opened on February 11th. Included in the bid here, and one of the alternates is we've had some chronic issues with some doors in the athletic wing over the years, and so we'll be replacing all those doors as a part of this bid. The treasurer recommends the board award the contract to Capital Aluminum and Glass Corporation as presented. The last bid opening was for the partial carpet replacement at Sherwood Elementary. Just as we did at Air Elementary last year, we'll be replacing all the carpet in the educational wing. The treasurer recommends the board awarding the contract to RFC Group as presented. The last item I have is the awarding to Cincinnati Bell for a wireless communications contract. The treasurer recommends that the board approve the agreements with Cincinnati Bell and Cincinnati Bell Wireless for the cellular services for the 2-year period beginning July 1st, 2014.
Mr. Johnson, I never cease to be amazed at the huge disparity that you can sometimes get on these bids.
Oh, yeah.
And the competitive process certainly seems to work. On the air fire alarm, the bid from Cincinnati Electrical is almost half the highest bid, and that highest bid does seem to be the outlier.
The highest bid, interesting enough, is also the same contractor that did the work over at Sherwood Elementary, so he had a clear understanding, and he admitted, we questioned him on bid day, and he clearly made a mistake on his bid. We also go through the apparent low bidder on every single project and review line by line their projects. We've actually had vendors in the past that would have withdrawn bids because they find that there was a mistake in their math and they can't stand by it. So we've confirmed all that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Just to clarify, none of this is being paid for from our PI fund, correct? Or virtually none of it, because the PI fund...
We have, in the appropriations, we have appropriations built in to cover this. We'll have a transfer to the PI fund to handle actually the management of the funds, but we came in within less than 1% of what we actually appropriated.
But the point is, this is coming out of our operating funds.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's about, with the fees, it's going to be about $540,000, $550,000 for these projects. Plus, we're going to rebid one project.
Later than I
I don't know how to top that. How do you follow that? We're going to rebid one project, which would be some partial roof replacement we'll be bringing back to the board, but it'll be a total of about $550,000.
How long has it been since we have done projects like this, improvement projects, from the Permanent Improvement Fund? I mean, how long has it been?
I think it was in 2009 that we actually brought the bids to the board, had them approved, and literally within 30 days is when everything went south as far as the funding goes, and we canceled everything that summer.
Right, I remember that.
I think it was.
Really was light for 3 years in a row. Last year, we brought some critical projects, and these are more of the same. And the reason we're not bringing the transfer is that we have one other project that'll come next month, and then we'll ask the board to make the transfer
Just
for
do it
these
one
5
time.
projects over.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, these are things that we've put off as long as we possibly can because of lack of funds.
Correct. I mean, normally, we would like to, with a district our size, would need to do between, $600,000 and $900,000 a summer to maintain, the standards and to maintain our
Older
warranties
buildings.
and things like that that we have.
Yeah, I would say during the time prior to this, since I've been here, there'd probably been close to $1 million, give or take, that we had done every summer through those fundings. And, things just dried up, as Mr. Heiss likes to point out, what happens to our interest earnings. But, I think what was evidence, what took place over at Sherwood at the beginning of the school year when we had the fire alarm system fail, which had been on our to-do list And so that's why we want to come right back and get air. Air will now complete. We've done upgrades of all the fire alarm systems in the district once we complete that.
Safe to say we were much more proactive then, and now we're in a position to maybe be reacting to what happens. I mean, this is by no means what we would like to bring as a capital project list to catch us up, but it's the most critical of those.
Yeah, we've put together a plan for the next 5 years over what we believe are the most critical things, but each year we reassess that to see if there's, something that's kind of taken its place because of circumstances.
Thank you. The point I was making is the fund money is coming from the operating funds.
Correct.
Had some criticism that, you're doing it anyway, did you really need the money? Well, the answer is yes. We're doing less than we should be doing, and the point is the money's coming from operating funds, so.
Right. I mean, it would either be $500,000 to be redirected back into the classrooms, or it would be set aside and maybe extend the life of the levy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to items 14, first 14.1, Mr. Tepfer.
Yeah, 14.1 and 14.2 are related to our healthcare consortium, SWOOSH, also called Southwest Ohio Organization of School Health. I'll give it just a little background on our consortium. We, in June of 2012, our board approved our membership into SWOOSH with an effective date of 9/1 of 12. Board passed both the bylaws and the participation agreement that are in the agenda today. The original ones were passed at that June of 12 board meeting. SWOOSH consists of 7 school districts: Forest Hills, Indian Hill, Lebanon, Milford, Northwest, Southwest, and Winton Woods. Obviously, we want to continue to grow that. Over 3,400 covered employees, and projected in the $42–43 million range of claims in the year 2014. So a large mass, and I'll read just a couple of the original documents just to refresh everybody. The vision statement of SWOOSH was, SWOOSH is a health and wellness consortium for school districts and government agencies that come together to provide stability and quality access to health care and benefits to all eligible members. We will do this by leveraging economies of scale, commonality of choices, and driving wellness and health management by collaborative efforts of all participating agencies. And some of the founding principles were, we obviously wanted to protect ourselves from a state consortium, which was always out there that we could be moved to without pooling our resources. Ability to offer each of our districts their own plan coming in, which is another something that's unique with our consortium. Hope to grow membership through stability and balancing risk. A huge principle is wellness, driving down the costs through a healthier workforce, and self-funding to eliminate carrier profit margin, eliminate premium tax, lower administration fees, more flexibility with plan design. Those are the biggies that were there in 2012. We spent the better part of 2013 evaluating self-funding. When, if, how. All consortiums in the Midwest of our size are self-funded, and self-funded, as we've talked, is we have the risk. We have the risk as a district. We have a carrier that's paying, that does the administrative piece. But some of the self-funding rationale that we talked about was our loss ratio, timing, strong engagement, underlying health is strong and in place in all districts, so our wellness initiatives are strong. Our size, leveraging the scale, and the cost savings, avoiding the premium tax and the health insurance premium tax. We really tried to do that for 2014. Wasn't right, didn't have it ready as a group, and we wanted to avoid the healthcare reform taxes of 2014, 1.8 and 2.3 are the two different taxes.
Could you just share the amount of money that represented in savings?
Yeah, I mean-
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of,
468.
Yeah, 468,000 is the projected savings in 2015 by having a self-insured product in a healthcare reform world. But some of the other key actions, we spent a lot of time, how do we organize our pool, the parameters of participation. I mean, some of the things that part of these agreements is we all have to come together, our 7 districts, and obviously if we dismantle and make it easy to come in and out, it falls apart. So a big chunk of our time was spent on that. Readiness, how do we build reserves, following best practices, had a lot of other consortiums and legal input in the whole process. Reviewing the contract, how do we manage risk with our stop loss, similar to what we do with the workers' comp. How do we manage the district's risk on the large claims, because we'll have some as a group of this size. How do we handle our banking, the plan changes, and then where we're at today is bringing revised bylaws and participation agreements to the board, which include, the first 14.1 is really both the asking the board to adopt the resolution to approve the Swoosh Consortium amended agreement and amended bylaws. I left the red line copies at your place. You'll see that there's some cleanup items, but the vast majority of this is just preparing us for self-funded. That's what the changes that were made.
Who will administer it? Who's going to do that?
Well, there's a couple. I mean, we have a financing arm that we're interviewing now, who will be the treasurer of our consortium, and actually will be the bearer of the funds, separate bank account where our reserve accounts will go. Typically, those are done by ESCs, like there's a Hamilton County ESC, Educational Service Center, or Butler County. We have 3 different counties involved in our group, so we're going to look to those folks.
Do we have to pay them then for their services?
Correct.
Yes.
Those are all part of that.
Okay.
And like I said, there's some of the meat and potatoes are still to come. I think the reason that why are we here in February when this is a 2015 initiative is we really had a 2-year funding plan. We wanted to be able to, by law, you have to, by the end of your first year, so by 12/31 of 15, we have to have 2 months of premium in reserves. So for our consortium, for Forest Hills, that's $1.6 million. So how do we do that? So we have a plan. We're going to start once the board considers this for approval. We will be able to make our first payment and really lock us in is really what we're trying to do to make sure that we're all 7 in agreement. The other 6 districts have passed these resolutions. We are the last. I wanted to get some additional information out in January, so I didn't bring it in January. But there is some details that we're still working through, but to be able to fund reserves, our bylaws and participation didn't have it included, so that's what this is for today. And those other details I'll bring forward, but it'll be, there's 10 Swoosh board members. Each district of 500 or more have 2 seats. Both Tammy and I are Swoosh board members. There's 2 other districts that have both Northwest and Milford have 2. Everybody else has 1 vote. So the 10 and majority is typically in most things. And then the item 14.2 is just a resolution approving the payments to Swoosh Consortium Contingency Fund. And for us, it's about a 7.5% of what we are, our number is what our funding plan is. And we would do that in the next couple of months to meet the requirements.
Why are there changes from the term school district to political subdivision? Is there some plan to bring entities other than school districts into this?
Could. I mean, I think we had attorneys that are specialists in consortium design really get into our bylaws, and obviously our target is school districts. We have a couple right around here that we are I'm having, lunch with one of my colleagues at one of them that are interested in, and obviously we're trying to build that pool that we can. And I mean, we're, in a nutshell, in 2015, it's about $49 million as estimated claims. I mean, we're kind of our own little State Farm or Nationwide. That's how you get the economies of scale. That's how you prevent, the losses from decimating your reserves and things like that. So we're much larger than a lot of other smaller consortiums around here due to our size. And we hope that the avoiding of the taxes, smoothing out, kind of fulfills, our needs. And then when you also factor in a requirement to be a member in Swooshes, you've got to be head over heels about wellness. You got to agree to do the things to inform your members about wellness. And I think the other piece of that is that half our members, in a growing number, also offer high deductible, which is another wellness kind of initiative, because it keeps people engaged in their health care. So that's the plan, that's what makes it unique to some of the other peers that we have and sometimes those dividends don't happen the first year. So we're kind of waking our members up, and sometimes that takes a couple of years before they truly grasp that. But we can for sure say that our next renewal will be $500,000 better than it would have been, because we're taking a self-insured product to market in 2015.
What are the hesitations of the other districts? I would think the Mariemonts and some of the smaller ones especially.
They're in a consortium, a lot of like-minded, they're in, I think, the GCIC, Greater Cincinnati Insurance Consortium.
Okay. So there are other consortiums out there.
They are, and I would say most are in one now. I think there's a couple things that make ours a little unique, is that you could come in as you are, which I think made the whole transition easier. The second thing is we do share how each other's doing. Obviously, if somebody isn't fulfilling the wellness initiatives and doesn't perform well, we can kick them out, and we would. I don't want to be one of those, but I mean, we can. But we're, that's what makes it unique. Right now, those other consortiums don't. And I think in addition to that is we tier the renewal, so that there's incentive for us to do well. It's not just a one renewal for all the consortium members. We might have a tiering of 8 percentage points between the high and the low, depending on how well we perform, Forest Hills performs in the group. So those are the things that we did when we thought about this, when Haran, our broker, really got us together and said, let's do something different. Why are you guys not in a consortium? Well, these are the reasons. Well, we threw those out and said, we'll put all those in, and now will you consider it? And so now we're trying to attract some of those that are out there that are not attached somewhere. There's a couple biggies that are out there, kind of like us. They're still getting that great rate, but they're all going to find that stability is really in the numbers. That's what we believe. So that's 14.1 and 14.2. And 14.3 is the Treasurer's Report, and item A, we have the donations. The big one this month, almost $8,000 from the AIR PTA. B is Statement of Board Accounts. We have 3 funds that we're waiting for some federal funds to come that we've requested. So they have a negative balance, but are in an acceptable position. Item C is our general fund receipts. We've received almost 69% of our projected revenue. And D and E is our expenditure patterns, and we are in line with where we typically are at this stage of the game. Nothing of any concern there. And item F for bank reconciliations. Item G, investments. Item H, amendments to the appropriation. No change in our general fund. And item I, approval of board service fund expenses. One comment on behalf, of all the things that we do from a compliance standpoint. Everybody's involvement is super. Unfortunately, the rules and the guidelines are not often user-friendly. They're often cumbersome, and a lot of what I can do is via email or phone calls, so I don't get to see what the other side looks like, but they always respond. Our staff are phenomenal at, our clerical administrative staff especially have to hold the line and sometimes do the, what do we do in here? But they always respond, so we're very fortunate that some of the crazy requests that I often have to deliver are met with support. So, as recommended, the board approve the entire consent agenda package, which would be items 10.1 through 14.3 as presented.
I move items 10.1 through 14.3.
A question on 14.2?
Oh, I second.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Discussion?
Yeah, before we go on, I want to go back to 14.2. You mentioned the contingency fund is managed by a third party of some sort. What type of oversight is there to checks and balances to make sure that we don't find out someday that something inappropriate or unfortunate happened?
Good question. First of all, we haven't established that person yet. So the players that are involved are the Hamilton County ESC, who by their creation are the administrator of lots of funds or functions like this. They do something we hope to bring up later, which is our sub-teacher pool that they do for lots of districts. So they are governed just as we are.
So they're audited just like, okay.
Absolutely. Right. And in addition to that, we all have oversight in that none of us wanted to be the guy. We wanted it to be a separate person. But all 7 of us as treasurers and all 10 of us as board members will be involved and access from a viewing standpoint of anything that goes on, and we'll be a part of the bank reconciliations and everything else. There are third-party administrator, so to speak. So there's a couple different arms that are going to be, there's a funding administrator as well as a claims administrator. There's a few people that are involved that I think will provide the checks and balances. In addition, just like for the workers' comp, we have to have a full actuarial review, which is even deeper sometimes than the financial audits. So it's, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, that's what this sounds like is a third-party administrator for workers' comp. It's similar.
Will they be bonded?
Yes.
We're good.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, as referenced earlier, I would like to bring up
The interest.
our point.
It's growing.
We have paid, well,
January's
over the last 20 years, we've gotten over between $20 and $22 million of interest to pay for our permanent improvement, or our maintenance, which after a quarter would be, my math, about $250,000 is what we would expect in a quarter, averaging. Including the $28 we got in January. Our first quarter is $161.
Big quarter.
So it's up, but that's because it's 2 months, and it's up about $20. But yeah, just to see, just relative size. I mean, we're talking orders of magnitude, $250,000 down to $160. All right.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Item 15.1, the Business Advisory Committee report. Mr. Tepfer?
We had a meeting on February 3rd, and just some of the topics. Obviously, we talked about our financial audit. We reviewed the communication, the new publication, which was really on the being ready to be distributed, well received. That group was heavily involved in some of the push to get that live. We talked about a significant amount about the facility and the boards, some of the discussions that have been had. Obviously, it's another group that I would welcome, to bounce ideas off of, but they have a lot of varying ideas related to that. And finally, we did spend quite a bit of time, and their full support was our self-funding of our health insurance. We spent a lot of time, probably a lot in more of the weeds with that group. They did look at a lot more information throughout the 2013 calendar year. So our next meeting is March 10th.
Thank you. The Forest Hills Foundation for Education report. That's me. The Forest Hills Foundation for Education met on Wednesday, February 12th. Among other things, they discussed the Day for Today's Women, which occurred just this last Saturday. I understand it went very well. I didn't attend. The alumni basketball game, Turpin Anderson alumni basketball game, will be this Saturday at 7 o'clock at Anderson High School this year. In addition to the younger men and the older men apparently being split because they can't play together, I guess. There's going to be a women's team for the first time. Is that right? For just a quarter or an entire game? I saw D here earlier. Yes. Just a quarter. Okay. And at that game, we will honor Frank Brandy for his 21 years of coaching at Anderson. There will also be an after party at the Anderson Bar and Grill. The Forest Hills 5K is scheduled for May 10th. And I'm asked to remind the Forest Hills employees that is part of the wellness program that Mr. Tepfer spoke of. They get a complimentary registration, so everybody in the district needs to sign up. There's no excuses. There is a search to recruit additional board members. And there are also some discussions of additional ACT and SAT prep sessions. And that's it. Next is the Legislative Liaison Report.
I attended a OSBA trustee meeting Saturday in Columbus, and the legislative director gave a report, and he started out by saying there are somewhere around 200 bills in the state legislature that either impact or are education bills or would impact education. So there is a lot going on. I will not cover all 200, but I will point out two of them. House Bill 416 and Senate Bill 284. They are both designed to provide some remedy for the calamity days. The House bill has been passed. The Senate bill is still in the Senate Education Committee. But after talking with Dr. Jackson, I think the plan that he's put together, either one of these, however this shakes out, will be okay. So, second thing I wanted to mention was I'd accepted an appointment by the Ohio School Board Association to the National School Board Association Federal Relations Network. I participated in training Sunday and Monday, February 2nd and 3rd, and had the opportunity on February 4th to meet with Senator Brown, later Senator Portman in the morning, and then Congressman Winstrup in the afternoon. The three key messages that shared with our elected leaders are, one, funding. What a surprise. The first one is to request that they fully fund Title I and IDEA. This would have a significant positive impact on the Forest Hills School District if they in fact did that. Second thing was to support local school board governance and decision authority. Now this is kind of an interesting one. The National School Board Association put together legislation, actually for the first time, that they were requesting House members sponsor. And I had met with Congressman Winstrup some time ago, a couple months ago, and he signed on as a co-sponsor to this legislation, one of 24 in the House, and which I was very grateful for. What happened was that bill didn't actually make it out of the Education Committee, but they did lift language from it and used in another bill that actually was passed out of the House, and Brad did vote for that. The whole point of this legislation is to help diminish the federal government's ability to impact what we're doing on the local level. In layman's language, I would say it would be to keep the federal government out of the local, the school district. And another piece of that was to diminish the executive branch's ability to essentially legislate. Arnie Duncan apparently was freely, let's see, it's not passing legislation, but essentially writing law, which, you know, you could question what's the executive branch doing that, and it was circumventing the Congress. And so this legislation was designed to minimize or eliminate their ability to essentially sidestep Congress and pass laws that the Congress never intended. The third thing that we discussed was the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, formerly known as NCLB. Ohio is operating under a waiver at this point, which could be withdrawn, but the point is that legislation needs to be corrected and reauthorized. There are a number of flaws and a number of fixes that we discussed. I won't go into that, but those are the three things that discussed with all three of those folks. I did actually ask Senator Portman and Senator Brown if they would take the lead on some of these initiatives that minimize federal government impact in the local school boards. Senator Brown was not very receptive, but Senator Portman was. So we'll see what comes of it.
Thank you, good report. Saga report, is that you?
I attended the Saga meeting on February 11th. Much of the discussion was over a potentially big after Anderson-Turpin game program that I don't want to steal their thunder, so that is potentially coming up here in the next couple months. Also, they talked about an interactive substance prevention component and that they're working with Nagel health teachers to develop a community-based activity for the students. And then the Health Expo at Nagel is on March 7th, and they are getting together for a booth there. So.
Thank you. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is March 24th, 2014 at 7 p.m. And as I pointed out before, at 5:30, not 5, at 5:30 we will have a work session to discuss facilities that'll be immediately preceding the regular meeting. We don't have an executive session tonight. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Tepper?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.